Hi, I'm Stuart and welcome to the channel. Well, we had a lovely hot summer here in the north of England, so much so that it caused drought conditions. But now it seems to have changed and we've got a lot of cold and rainy weather. I'm still hopeful of getting out sometime before Christmas, but for the moment we're stuck in the garage. So my thoughts were starting to turn to what we can do with Rita and our winter projects. Now, one of the issues with Rita is the suspension is very crude and basic, built down to a price. The front forks are 38mm Paolis, and a lot of trials bikes of the time use them, but these are unadjustable and not able to be changed much at all. Even the spring rate, I can't get a replacement set of springs for it. So if we're going to do anything to it, we're going to need to move to one of the better sets of Paoli 38mm. I say lots of trials bike use them around this period, and most of them had damping control and changeable springs. So I think we'll look for a set of those to graft onto the front of Rita. Once we do that, of course, it's going to show up the ollie shock at the back as again being very crude and poor quality. So I think we need to upgrade that to a better quality shock to try and match the improvement we're going to make to the front. I think over this winter we'll also have a look at this seat. The cover on it is now cracked and splitting, and it's always been really uncomfortable. So I think while the bike's apart, we'll get this off and send it to a local upholsterer for a new cover and maybe some different quality foam underneath there. Right, it's time to start looking at this seat. Before we send it off to get it recovered, one of the things I need to do is get some images of this logo, because we're going to need to get a stencil cut and buy some vinyl spray so we can reproduce that. So let's get some pictures. And the second thing we're going to need is the dimensions. Right, with an image of this logo and the dimensions, we should be able to get a stencil cut, and then when we've got new vinyl on the seat, we'll be able to use the stencil to reapply the logo. Off we go to the upholsterers. Right, we're back from the upholsterers with my new seat cover. As you can see, I've gone for a straight black. I thought with the two-tone there was just too many colours going on, but I asked them to put a yellow contrast stitch in there to pick up the yellow on the bike. So now we come to the scariest part of the operation, which is to actually spray the logos onto the side, because if I mess this up, we've lost the seat cover. So what I did was, while I was picking up the seat, I asked them for an offcut of the same material that they covered it in, so we can do a quick practice spray onto this. So let's see what we can do. Right, we're working in the garage today and it's absolutely freezing, it's sub-zero. So this is absolutely the worst conditions to do any spraying in. We've got our spray here, and it's a leather or vinyl spray, specialist for this sort of thing. So we'll give that a shake in a second. First thing we're going to do, we've got our sample here, is we're going to give it a clean down with alcohol. We don't want any grease on the surface, because what we want to do is stick some tape to it and make sure it's really well stuck down. So I'm just going to make a little pattern here, because what I want to check is that we don't get any bleeding. So cold today that I can't get a clean tear on my masking tape. Right, we'll just add some newspaper to mask off the rest of the area. Right, that should be good enough. Right, as the temperature is so low, I'm going to put a little bit of heat onto it just to help the tape stick down. Jolly good. I'll heat it up again once we're ready to spray, because having the surface warm will help the paint to adhere to it. Next job, shake the can for 2 minutes. Right, that should be sufficient, but before I start using it, I've actually got a bucket of hot water down by the side of me. When it's really cold, the pressure can drop too much inside the can and it can prevent it from getting high pressure to spray. So by putting it in warm water, we'll actually increase the pressure. So we'll just give that a minute to warm through. Well, that's had a minute to warm through, and the can is now warm to the touch. So we'll just give another quick heat to the surface. Give it the best possible chance of adhering. Or we'll give it a spray. So I'm going to give it lots of very light coats here. The finished effect I want is quite a faded one. I don't want a solid block of colour. So we're going to mist it from quite high up so that the paint's hitting it almost dry. Before we do that, I'm just going to give a quick test spray. Yep, just so I know that it's not going to suddenly spurt out. Right, moving from side to side and not stopping over the object. That will do for a first coat. Right, we've given that a minute to flash off and dry. Constantly shaking it to make sure it's mixed up, and we'll give it another quick coat. And I think that's probably going to be dark enough. We don't want it, we don't want it too solid. Right, so we'll give that half an hour now to dry off. We'll come back and take the tape off and see what we've got. What we're looking for is that it hasn't crept under the edges, and also see how thick the colour looks when it's against the black. So I don't want a solid logo, I want this sort of speckled finish. So come back in a while and see how it's done. Right, time for the grand reveal. I think that's pretty good. It's not crept under the edges at all. It does scratch off a bit. I may have to leave it to just cure a bit longer. That's okay, this is just a test piece. So before I move on, I've just had this piece of vinyl sitting in the house for a couple of hours getting warm, and I'm afraid to say that the paint is still coming off when you scratch it. So the adhesion's very poor. So I think we're going to have to wait until we've got warmer weather. This is just not going to give us a solid result. Well, it's such a shame, but I think if we're not going to get the adhesion, then it's not worth putting it on. It'll just flake straight off again. So I may give it another try later in the year when it's a bit warmer. But if any of you know any way of getting better adhesion on these sorts of vinyl sprays, then let me know in the comments. But as for now, we'll just leave it plain black and ride it like that for a while. So while we're wrapping up, I'll just give a mention to an eBay seller called 1976 Bus, who made me some custom built stencils, which unfortunately we're not going to get to use right now, but hopefully they'll come in useful later in the year. But he actually took all the lettering and the sizing off my old seat and made me those, so thank you very much to 1976 Bus. So as we're not going to do any more work on the seat, I might as well put it back on the bike and give you a look at how the new graphics and seat look together. So that's all for our workshop videos, and I hope you enjoyed watching them. So we'll be back later in the spring when it warms up a bit, and we'll do some setup out on the trails. But for now, that's all from me. Until the next time.